right, what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power. And the finals for the Boston Pro just wrapped up. So I'll give you guys the placings first, and then I'll give you guys my thoughts. So in 5th place, you had Max Charles. He moved up from where he was in prejudging. In 4th place, you wound up having Samson Dauda. In 3rd place, Steve Kuklo. So he matched his Arnold placing, but it wasn't as good because Brandon wasn't in this lineup. So it was technically a placing lower for Steve. In 2nd place, and this is the one that I'm really proud of and I was really excited to see, Justin Rodriguez. And of course, your winner, William Bonac. Getting that redemption you just know he wanted after that Arnold Classic where he narrowly lost to Brandon Curry. But let's talk about these placings here. So I said this at prejudging. I think the guy that stood out to me the most here was Justin Rodriguez. I think he looked insanely impressive at the Arnold Classic prejudging, and it was just a matter of that being a 2-day show and him slipping between finals and prejudging because he had that whole day for things to go wrong. But at prejudging at the Arnold, honestly, I had Justin possibly top 2, but he wound up slipping out of the top 3 at the Arnold because he looked so different at finals, and this is what we wanted to see from Justin. He looked the same, if not better, at finals as he looked at prejudging. He looked very, very similar between the two. His conditioning is crazy. The guy brought crazy detail. He's wide as a house. Even next to these guys like Steve Kuklo and William Bonac is known for being a super heavily muscled bodybuilder. Justin looks huge next to Steve, next to Bonac, next to Samson, next to Max, next to Regan. These are not small guys, so he looks gigantic while bringing a crazy level of detail. I really think that the story of these past 2 shows, while we talk about Brandon Curry and William Bonac and these other guys, I think Justin really deserves some credit for what he's been able to do these past few shows. Because the Arnold, I think if he had brought that same conditioning that he brought at the Arnold prejudging to the finals, I really think Justin could have been top 2, top 3 at the Arnold. It just didn't add up for him. But I'm so happy to see that he was able to pull it together here and pull off that 2nd place spot, because keep in mind, Steve beat him at the Arnold. So this is, even though Justin didn't win, and a lot of people I saw in the comments for prejudging had this close between Justin and Bonac, I think it was close, but this is still good for him to beat Steve. He's moving up from where he was at the Arnold, and he definitely did better here. And to be honest, I'm going to be curious to see the scorecards because I think he was pushing Bonac. I don't know what you guys think. You guys can let me know in the comment section below. I think we're probably going to see a pretty close score between Bonac and Justin. I think Justin was really pushing him. I think Bonac looked good here. I think he deserved the victory for sure. He was my prediction to win even after prejudging. But I do think Bonac looked tighter at the Arnold. And I think Justin looked tighter here. So I think a lot of that distance between Bonac and Justin that existed at the Arnold didn't necessarily exist here at this Boston Pro. And I also just want to say I really enjoyed this show. I think the production here was good. And I want to make a note that the lighting at this show was phenomenal. I think you guys would agree. I saw that comment a lot on the last video as well. Whoever lit this show, you did a great job, and other shows should take notes. This is how a bodybuilding show should be lit. It was lighting that complemented the physique. It made the guys' detail stand out even more. It made them look more ripped. It didn't wash them out. It wasn't too dark. It wasn't too bright. I think the lighting here is what everybody wants a bodybuilding show to be. The background wasn't too busy. It wasn't too distracting. The live stream was good, and the live stream was cheap. I think that is a big one. $9.99 for a bodybuilding live stream, and for it to be good quality, I think that should be the standard going forward. So shout out to the guys that ran the Boston Pro. I think it was a great show. Big prizes given out at this show. Now, also, a lot of people were asking me about Regan Grimes. We don't know where he placed yet. We just know that he was outside of the top 5. Honestly, I think Regan just looked really, really off here. You can see these comparison photos here of him and Steve Kuklo. And Regan just, it's not only does he lack the size, which was the biggest problem that he had. In these lineups like the Olympia, in these bigger, higher caliber lineups, he got out-muscled. He got outsized. But I think even in a lineup like this Boston Pro, which really isn't that big of a show, it had some really good competitors in this one. But it's not the Arnold, it's not the Olympia, it's not the New York Pro. For him to be outside of the top 5, probably outside of the top 6 at this show, is really disappointing for him. You know, towards the end of last year, he had that big win at the KO Pro Show in Egypt. He had that big second-place finish at the Legion Sports Festival, where he took second to Sean Clarita, and a lot of people thought that he was pushing him. He was gaining some of the momentum back that he lost after that 15th place placing at the Olympia. And I saw someone comment this on one of the videos, and I thought it was a good way of putting it. And they said, not every bodybuilder's birthright is to go on and be dominant and win shows and win the Olympia. Not every bodybuilder that has great potential and a great structure is going to deliver on that. And that was the way that that comment described Regan Grimes. And I thought that was a very realistic way of putting it. Sometimes we see guys like Regan, that Regan does have a great physique. He's got a great structure. He tried to switch to classic physique because he does have such good lines for a men's open guy. He didn't do well when he switched to classic physique. He moved back to men's open bodybuilding. He's tried his hand at that again. He did pretty well towards the end of last year. Winning a pro show is no easy accomplishment. But once he gets into these bigger, deeper, denser lineups like this Boston show or the Arnold, for whatever reason, he just gets way overshadowed. And it's true, not every great bodybuilder is destined to win the big one, and that's okay. And by the big one, you know, that could mean the Arnold, that could mean the New York Pro, that could mean the Olympia. Regan could be a guy that maybe just wins these pro shows here and there, but at the big shows, just for whatever reason, doesn't put it together. Or I could be completely wrong, and one day he goes on to win the Olympia. But it seems like that's been kind of what's happening with Regan so far. But he's also in his 20s. It's not like there's not time for him to turn things around. But I think the thing that a lot of people were looking at was it looked like he was already turning things around by working with his new coach, by working with Milo Sarshev. It looked like those placings, like 15th at the Olympia, were things, you know, those were things of the past. But then we saw him at the Arnold Classic where he wound up taking 7th, which isn't horrible, but out of 9 guys, it's not great. He was closer to last place at the Arnold than he was to first, a lot closer. And I'm not saying this to rag on Regan. I love Regan. I think Regan's got a great physique. Like I said, I love his structure. I love his lines. But maybe it's just time to manage your expectations. Not every guy is destined to go on and win the Olympia, even if they have a great structure, great physique, very aesthetic. Some guys just, they never put it together. But maybe Regan's not one of those guys. Maybe he will. But that's one of the messages that I saw most frequently after prejudging when Regan wasn't in that call out of the top 4, is most of the messages that I saw were, do you think Regan will ever put it together? Where was Regan? Why wasn't Regan in the first call out? What's the deal with Regan not placing at the Arnold, not placing here? And by not placing, I mean not being in the first call out. And honestly, I think that's just the best way of putting it. It's not everybody's birthright to do well. And again, not trying to rag on Regan. I love the guy. But that is a big question that a lot of people have had. So that's the wrap-up of the Men's Open Finals at the Boston Pro Show. Let me know what you guys thought in the comment section down below. Give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel if you have not subscribed yet already. As always, I love you guys, man. I appreciate you guys. Nick Strength and Power signing out.